You're a good GM. Could you be better? Yup. That's right, it's one more episode of this series, and today we're going to be talking about failing forward. This is something that's really hard to adapt to, especially if you got into the hobby through Dungeons & Dragons, and that's mainly what you run. But we'll get into that. Let's first talk about what's failing forward. Failing forward is basically a nice way to say that bad rolls or negative rolls shouldn't block the story from advancing. That is, in D&D terms, failing a check should progress the story and the narrative as much as succeeding in a check. The simplest example I can come up with is a non-consequential roll. For example, let's say opening a locked door. Someone will attempt to lock that door. Let's roll to unlock the door. We get a natural 20, the door opens, narrative progresses, you now enter the next room. The first reflex of a new GM, basically, or someone that has not had contact with fail-forward mechanics, is if you roll a low enough number, you go and say, oof, yeah, the door is still locked. What else do you want to do? This means that this period, this action, did nothing for the narrative. You're basically exactly on the same place that you were before you asked for the roll. Although this can be fine in certain occasions, progressing the narrative after a failed roll feels more satisfactory for the story, feels more engaging for the players, and overall just gives for a better story. Going back to the locked door example, a way to put a fail-forward spin on this is that a 1 doesn't necessarily mean you fail in unlocking the door, but you succeed in a catastrophically bad way. For example, if you were trying to get into the next room and detect it, maybe the player failed to notice that the hinges were completely rusted, so the moment they unlock the door just boom, falls on the floor in their next room, and everyone is alerted to their presence. This means that their roll was still bad, there were still consequences to a failed roll, but the narrative progresses in an interesting way. Now they have a different problem to deal with, and they're not stuck looking at the same door, trying to do the same thing over and over. Maybe a different character would try the same thing. That is not conducive of a good narrative, of a good story progression. Dungeons & Dragons specifically does not have a rule set that potentiates this type of failing forward playstyle. Lots of other games do. Powered by the Apocalypse games usually have this in a tough choice scenario. Quest does this very well with tough choices and catastrophes, and plenty of other games do that. We're getting into dangerous territory of me going into a tangent, so let's save that for another episode of You're a Good GM. Could you be better? Yup. For now, next time you ask for a roll, try thinking of fun ways to progress the narrative without just saying, nope, you fail.